are talking The Seance by director Christopher James Kramer. This is a quirky dark comedy horror drama which essentially has two people talking in a room for the majority of the film. What is the story? So it focuses on this spirit medium, this guy. At the beginning of the film, we see that he's doing a reading and he seems very legitimate and kind of everyone's very impressed. But there's one guest that hasn't left yet, and this is this woman who appears to be some type of YouTube paranormal investigator whose mission in life is to go and discredit various things, including spirit mediums. She kind of hangs around to try and kind of find out what he's up to and how he's duping these kind of these customers and what's kind of going on. And what we have is essentially a battle of wills between this kind of YouTuber who's trying to have theories about how he's doing all this kind of stuff, and him trying to kind of defend himself and trying to prove that he's not actually kind of a charlatan at all. In actual fact, he's legitimate. In the meantime, we may have this kind of build-up of spiritual energy that may well threaten them both. What'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss what I think works with The Seance. Straight off the bat, I have to tell you, this is a very, very low budget movie. Clearly it cannot afford to have lots of kind of location shooting, special effects, things like this. And this is obviously, they've played to their strength in terms of having this essentially take place in all one location. Albeit this location has a few kind of different rooms and things, but nonetheless it all takes place in this one kind of house. And the majority of this film is character interactions. It's the conversation, like 3/4 of this movie is just essentially this conversation between these kind of two characters. And as such, it works in the strength of these characters and the actors performing them. I have to say, the guy who plays our spirit medium, I thought comes across as quite a kind of a likeable character. The way he tries to kind of defend what he's doing and prove that he is, you know, not a charlatan at all, in actual fact, the real deal. I think his performance is pretty good, and you know, he's kind of a likable character. You know, you want him to kind of be telling the truth and all that sort of thing. And the movie, as it goes on, it sort of starts to pepper in a little bit more kind of supernatural stuff, and there is some kind of effective, maybe not exactly chills here, but there's some spookier moments and some, you know, maybe slightly unsettling kind of scenes as we get towards the end. And it's more about the kind of like the atmosphere and then having kind of on-screen kind of scares and things like this. It's kind of like the you know, the window into the unknown. There is a kind of quite a unique looking figure, shall we call it, that will remind you of something out of Pan's Labyrinth. That's all I'll kind of say. Like Guillermo del Toro would be proud of this kind of thing. Feels very much like something that will come out of his kind of mind, and it does make for some quite interesting visuals. And, you know, like I said, the movie is never really particularly kind of scary, and it's more of a character piece than anything else. But then it does have a few kind of like, you know, slightly kind of spine sort of tingling moments. The movie certainly is a battle of wills between our two kind of main sort of characters going back and forth. Ultimately, you always feel that this is never really a fake out. You know, this spirit medium is always legitimate. And that kind of leads me into what I think doesn't work with this film. Having a film like this, which is purely based on kind of two characters interacting, it really has to have very, very smart writing and well-developed characters and good acting. So the writing, first of all, I think the issue here for me is that there's never really any doubt that this guy is a real medium. And I think the movie would have been better had it have kind of presented you know, differing views ultimately, and then you kind of like weren't quite sure which way it was going, and as such, you know, you were kind of flitting between maybe which character you are kind of more, you know, you're kind of behind. But as it stands at the moment, you know, the movie never gives you any reason to doubt that the kind of the character of our medium. And as such, you always feel the kind of the skeptic is always attacking him, and he's kind of having to defend himself. And I think the more interesting narrative would have been if it led the viewer on kind of maybe changing their mind a little bit. Instead, you just feel like, you know, this medium's getting berated for kind of like an hour. So there's the issue with that. The other thing I have to say is the actress who plays the YouTuber who is the kind of the skeptic, I have to say is somewhat unlikable, because she ultimately is into this guy's house, and you feel like she is certainly kind of throwing her weight around, and she doesn't really have any authority to do so, so to speak. She's in his house, you know, she's fiddling with his kind of property, she's kind of going places where she shouldn't, she's taking his photo, and I have to say she comes across as quite obnoxious, and therefore, you know, you don't really, for me personally anyway, I didn't really care about her kind of point of view, because she just seems very antagonistic. And I've got to say as well, I don't think the acting was strong from the actress here. She's asked to do a hell of a lot. I mean, this is really, as I say, two people talking in a room, so you really do have to do some, you know, to really work with the characters here. And I think she's saddled with a somewhat unlikable character, and the way she plays it as well, I don't think didn't quite buy it. And which leads me into the next issue, which I think the dialogue here didn't seem particularly naturalistic. This, a lot of the time, sounded like dialogue written on a page rather than a genuine kind of conversation that two people were having. Yeah, there's some arguments, there's some disputes here. You know, there is some back and forth, but it feels like it's like a written script. That's what it feels like. It does not feel like a kind of a real kind of conversation. The actual dialogue that is said just sounds like it's come from one person's mind and kind of and written on a page, and these two actors have kind of said it. I think the guy does a better job, if I'm honest, but as I say, the female lead, this skeptic, her character is unlikable, and I think the actress is quite strong, and the dialogue doesn't seem natural to me. So that kind of leaves us with a problem. I do feel this movie, you know, obviously is playing to the fact that it doesn't have a huge budget, and it is trying to do an original take on this movie, and that is something to be in its credit, I would say. It's, you know, it has this kind of like idea, how can we kind of do this movie without having flashy special effects, lots of cast, things like that. And we do it in the last kind of quarter, get a little bit more of that, and I'm not going to critique it in regards to its kind of special effects. And there are some kind of, yeah, you know, it seems like a little bit of theatre acting at the end, but fine, you know, it's a low budget film, I can accept that's the kind of what it has to do in regards to makeup and stuff like that. That's not a problem for me. But yeah, it just seems a little bit, it shifts its tone a little bit, but the whole point of this movie was the relationship between these two characters. I mean, this guy, he's the most patient man in the world, is all I'll kind of say. I didn't believe he wouldn't be a little bit more defensive than he is in this movie. Just a tad. If it were me, I'd be, get the F out, woman. But as it stands at the moment, the characters don't seem realistic. It's a shame. This movie is seemingly quite well regarded, but for me, I didn't get much out of it. I appreciate the idea, but for me, I didn't buy these characters, their interactions, especially the kind of the female. And like I said, I thought there was a missed opportunity with the writing here to have a little bit more smart and a little bit more nuance in regards to who you were kind of, you know, behind at any point. But as it stands at the moment, you're only ever behind the medium, and as such, it's fairly basic. I'll give it a 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.